Kate, we know we're annoyed by these AI overviews that we get when we're searching for something, but now it seems like that logic where if mistakes are made, it's no one's fault because AI did it, and it's up to you to believe it or not. This is leaking into what we pay, the health advice we trust, and that's kind of annoying to me. I don't know how you feel about that.
Yeah, it's kind of like because every product, service, platform in the world has been like, oh, and now we have AI. So we're going to like add AI onto our service, whether that's search or whether that's shopping or whether that's even like what we're going to talk about in a bit, like healthcare. So it's almost like there's this bot behind everything, this algorithm behind everything that happens across every service. I have a catchphrase for what this thing is called. I like to call it a ghost authority, right? It's almost like we've handed the power of our lives over to these like systems, right? And like it used to be that we handed over all of our data and all of our decisions, right, to like computers that would basically make choices for us. But now there's like these algorithms that are getting in between us and the things that we're doing. So it's almost like we have this authority between ourselves and the end result of what we want to do. And there is no longer a person left accountable, left to hold the bag. Does that make sense?
It makes absolute sense. And that's what we're actually going to be covering today. What happens when there's this ghost authority, this it's not my fault kind of thing that seems to be the pattern now in search, surveillance pricing, and also your health information. So one thing that we want everyone to walk away with, it's a sort of checklist to mitigate this, right? Because I don't think they're escaping, but to mitigate. So if you stay tuned, we're going to cover these 3 topics: search, pricing, and healthcare. So the first thing I want to cover, Kate, is AI search and how truth is sort of collapsing, right? Because technically AI comes to search to solve a problem, which is there's too much noise online, too many blogs that are SEO optimized, so we need help, like ChatGPT loves to say, sorting through the noise. Now, what happens is that many times this AI overview that now we're getting wired to just believe without double checking, what happens when it gives wrong information, right? And we've seen the case about the pizza with glue or eating poisonous mushrooms. But for example, one thing that happened, and I want to show you the article because I came loaded with links today. For example, right, we got a Minnesota solar company that is suing Google over their AI summary because on the AI overview, allegedly, Google falsely stated that the company was facing a lawsuit, which obviously it's not a good look if you're looking to have business with a company.
Okay, but that's one thing. Like, is that the worst that it gets? Like, it seems
no.
Like a lot worse stuff could happen than just like somebody suing somebody because there's a wrong summary.
Yes, which is what happened to Canadian musician Ashley MacIsaac, who basically got accused on the AI overview of offenses by this AI overview, which actually got him removed from a tour. This had a very serious impact to his reputation, to his bottom line. So that's where we're seeing, this lack of accountability having real consequences. So is there a way out of this?
Well, I'm thinking about a couple of things. One, poor Ashley MacIsaac. That sounds terrible. And also, like, again, going back to this idea of the ghost authority, like, who do you then call to, like, get it taken down? Because you can't take it down. It's not like a website that can be turned off, right? It's all that information is somehow lost within the AI algorithm. Like, there's no way to extract it, right? So there's no recourse. I guess you could sue Google or wherever that search result came from, but like searching Google, or suing Google, like good luck suing Google.
Is there a way Google could fix this?
This is the problem with AI, is that Google could fix this specific thing by like putting a Band-Aid over it. But because AI systems are trained on the entirety of the internet and Reddit and all of these things where information surfaces. Like, it could be that somebody didn't like this musician. I wrote a whole Reddit thread about some negative, false things about him, and the algorithm thinks that's true. I mean, why wouldn't the AI model think that was true? It has no idea of true and false. There's absolutely no way to take it out of the machine once it has gotten inside.
Exactly, right? And because AI technology, it's basically using context, or generative AI, right? It's using context to provide an answer along the training data. Like you said, they can fix a specific one, but the bigger the model gets, the more chances also that there are a lot of other situations, like the case of our Canadian musician friend, right? So, again, this is bad. It'll get worse, though. And we'll talk about it in a bit when we cover health. But what are some recommendations, right, that we can give folks? I do see this becoming a much bigger issue. I see companies coming out with like reputation destruction services so that AI gets trained on this. There's so many business opportunities for this to go in a terrible way. Can we do something?
Yeah. Yes. Well, I like to say if you're using AI like Google search, you're using it wrong, right? It is not an answer machine. It is not a recommendation machine. These are systems that are built to generate text, the likeliest answer to whatever prompt you have given it. I think that we're trained to see a prompt box and put in a question and get an answer because we've all been trained on using Google search over our lives, last 25 years of our lives, right? So think differently about AI. Use AI as a way to orient, a way to think through problems, a way to explore something, but not the conclusion. The conclusion comes from you. And then if there's something that really fundamentally matters, like the good thing about ChatGPT today, for example, is that it gives you source material linked within its answers if you ask it. So click on those if you think that it's really important stuff, like, I don't know, something that has to do with money or safety or health, right? These are things where you just want to double verify and make sure that what you're getting is information from its knowledge base and from the internet remixed into an answer that is actually truthful as opposed to remixed into something that has a different context. Or that maybe is not factual.
Okay, so what I'm hearing from what you're saying is that we need to add friction in order for these answers to be truthful.
It's a really good way to put it because I feel like the story of the internet to date has been like removing friction, right? And like as a slightly ashamed Amazon mom, like when I need that thing for the school project tomorrow, like I will just push a button and have it there tomorrow, right? Amazon is like the best example of frictionless shopping, but maybe we've gotten a little bit over our skis right now. The loss of friction in this specific process that you're talking about is leading to untruthful answers surfacing and people taking fiction as fact.
Mm-hmm. But Kate, there are good news here, which is sure, Ghost Authority might promote misinformation, and we might say, well, this is probably the worst these systems can do. But how about if this logic decides how much you and I pay for the very same thing? How would you call that?
Oh, well, I've done a bit of research about this. I'm kind of fired up about this topic, and we will put in the show notes a link to a really great podcast, I think it's Today Explained, that talks a little bit more about what is called surveillance pricing. Have you heard that term?
I've heard the term, actually recently quit an app because of their surveillance practice policies. But I want to hear from you and your research.
It does like boil my blood a little bit too. So basically surveillance pricing, or algorithmic pricing, which it's also called, means that these third-party data brokers will provide all this data about users to a D2C sales company, right? A company that's selling you something directly. And through that data, which is connected to your IP address or whatever that identifying characteristic is of you, the shopper, they will understand what your breaking point is for what you're going to pay for something using hundreds and hundreds of data points. And then they will serve you a different price for that item as the person sitting next to you searching on a different device. And they've done tests about this where they get a bunch of people into a room and have them shop for things on Instacart, and they will get a price differential of like up to 75 cents on given things just based on like data that's been collected by them through their purchasing behavior or any other activity that they've done in digital space. Like, it's just kind of gross. If you imagine walking through the grocery aisle and they have those like little, on the aisle it has a little price, and like I walk through and it shows me a price, and then Juan is like a couple feet behind me with his shopping cart and he walks through and it changes for him, so he gets it at a different price point than I do. It just kind of makes me a little bit frustrated. I don't know why it would serve me a higher price than you. We have no way of understanding what data is filed for us in whatever database exists out there.
Yeah, and we should assume all of it. Every time we use that promotion at the supermarket, every time we added that loyalty card into our Apple Wallet, those are all data points, right? And I have as you were talking, I'm sharing this article basically in which they conducted this test you were talking about on how there was a price difference. For example, in my case, I'm not originally from the U.S., so when my sister from Argentina visited, and obviously we're in a different app store, we both usually would try to get an Uber. And again, this is anecdotal evidence. I'm not saying this is a policy by the company. I'm just sharing an experience that happened to me and my sister. Basically, I have Uber Gold or Plus or whatever they call the one where technically you get a bigger cashback or whatever. And we both put a request for a ride-in to see how much that would cost. And she was getting charged less than I was, even though technically I'm on the program that gives me the best possible price. And that happened in front of our eyes. But then, obviously, as we see Instagram, we even saw Ticketmaster in England. When Oasis came back, they were doing search pricing. So in this particular case, the good thing is that Instacart got a huge backlash. They actually had to walk this policy back because once this video unmasking what had happened went viral, as you would expect, shit hit the fan. We all freaked out. I canceled my Instacart account, and I know many others that did as well. But again, right, we're talking about search pricing or optimized pricing sometimes as other companies that harvest our data will sell it. But here's where I ask Kate, what are recommendations for us to sort of avoid or mitigate? I don't know if there's a way to avoid this, but how could we mitigate this?
Yeah. Well, I think whoever comes up with the idea of a service-based software that can convince these algorithms that you are a very frugal shopper when you're not, they're going to make $1 bazillion. But in the meantime, while somebody works on inventing that, I think it's all about slowing down and taking a minute. You can go incognito in your browser window and maybe some of that data won't follow you as you are shopping for things online. Another really sad example that I've heard is that certain airlines are able to tell, because of search history, if there's been a death in the family, and when an urgent price ticket comes up, there's various signals that will be able to show them they can upsell that price on that ticket because you'll take it at any price because there's been a family tragedy. So these are sort of the types of scenarios where even though you may have an urgent need for something, you can just sort of take a pause and look at various pricing options with various different providers and see if there's maybe something that works better for you than the first bright flashing icon of a deal that you see.
Mm-hmm. And there are resources online. For example, when we see prices, if you go to camel.com, you can track pricing through time. We'll add the link in the description. I use that on Black Friday to see which items were actually less. But like you mentioned, I think our urgency is getting monetized. I think it always was.
Yes.
But now, more than ever, apps are being very transparent about, if you want this within 20 minutes, it costs extra. So I think, like you said, we got hooked on convenience And now we're paying the price, right? So, because we say, okay, go in incognito mode, right? But at the end of the day, you also have the data from your credit card, your IP, like you said. So you could have a VPN, you could go on the most private browser. There's still ways in which they can get that information. So, like you say, I think the most powerful thing folks can do is pause before urgent purchases whenever you can, right? There's a death in the family. I don't know if you can say, hey, can you guys hold for 2 days so I can get a better ticket price? So on that one, you're going to eat it.
Airlines. You could take an hour and search different airlines to see who could give you the better deal.
Yeah. But definitely urgency will be monetized against you. Speed makes you expensive. So here, like calm makes you unpredictable. It's kind of like the takeaway. Don't be predictable for the algorithms. But no.
I love that.
I love that, but it cannot be all love. So we're annoyed when it's just plain tickets and hotel rooms. But what about if this ghost authority figured out there's even a better way to make money? Something no one can ignore. And that's our symptoms, our mental health, our family history. And that's the boss level of ghost authority, which is medical data and how we willingly surrender it. So I want to walk you through something that you probably saw.
I saw this commercial from OpenAI recently that got me a little bit annoyed, or maybe just like questioning what exactly was the motivation behind this initiative. So
let's play the first 10 seconds and see this magical dystopian trailer.
All right, let's get our blocks. Come on. 1, 2. Look, it's an alligator. I am trying to figure out the balance of mom life and taking care of myself. I don't know.
Okay, so we get a very clear target. For example, it seems to me she's saying as a mom, stress for time. So we're very clear on who this is aiming for. It's not an entrepreneur jet setting.
Chronic pain.
What else?
They think it's all about symptom management. For me, a lot of that is also mindset management.
Mindset management. Okay, we see food, we see healthy things, and now they're talking about mindset management. So obviously, first thing we're saying is like, this is not a tool for you to trust. So
I love your takedown of this commercial, by the way. Like, I could watch this all day long.
Should we?
I'm having an endo flare-up today. What are some simple things I can do to help me feel better?
I have eczema, and in the spaces that I'm in, like pageants, it's important that I show up looking my best.
Okay, so a beautiful ad. We'll also put the link in the description. But basically what they're saying, something I noticed when I moved to this country is that getting healthcare is not as simple as you would expect, especially mental health. Also, here in LA, we're sort of spoiled because we do get many options, but I think Johnson from Nebraska might not have as many options. So what are your thoughts on this ChatGPT Health tool?
Well, the first thing that I saw in that commercial was this adorable little baby on the floor. And I was like, please don't put that baby's health data inside of ChatGPT. Like, please, that baby can't control what you put of them in. And then the other thing that I recognized in this video is that some of the health conditions that people were talking about were like manageable, like lifestyle conditions, right? Like eczema, right? Or like I think a woman had endometriosis. Of course, they're meaningful and significant, but they're not like life-threatening, nor do they necessarily have any impact on, decisions hiring managers would have about you or decisions other like authorities would have about you in the world. And so I feel like they're showing this like vision of how this tool could be helpful without getting into the like underbelly of like then what happens when you like have cancer, right? And like that data about you being a cancer patient could potentially inform the healthcare costs that you would be incurring in years to come. Like we've always said here on this podcast, there's just no way to pull the data out of the machine once you have put it in. And we have all of these rules and regulations in this country, which is part of the reason why there's like 17 forms to fill out for everything all the time. But they're meant to protect your health data because that is data that can impact various important things in your life. Insurance costs, life insurance costs, employer decisions, many, many things, credit scores, everything. And so, like, I'm not convinced that these people are doing the right things with that baby's data.
If you look at the trailer or this promotional video, the way they position it is very smart, because at no point do they say, hey, this will give you medical answers, which gives them, kind of like a Hail Mary pass on say, hey, wasn't us. What they say is this empowers you to become an ally to your doctor and ask better questions, or to have, some expectation management. And, that in theory, it's a beautiful tool. But if we know that things, are very different in theory than in reality, I can see a case where a lot of people who do not have the resources, which in this country where I think 40% of the population
Use it as a doctor?
Exactly. 40% of the population are $1,400 away from incurring in debt if they have a medical emergency. So I can see this being a tool that for many folks actually gets them access to medicine they're not getting. So there's a gap actually there. That's true. But now, they position your data as safe. But let me go to a previous app that said your personal health information, your DNA is safe with us, right? 23andMe.
Yes, I remember this one. Yes.
And that's leaked and that's out there. So I was like, surely the terms and conditions for ChatGPT Health will be very accountable for the data, right? And take full responsibility. So you want to see what ChatGPT says?
Yes, please. Did you ask?
Of course I did. So what I did, first of all, I went to the service terms.
So while you're pulling this up, let me just clarify. You did the work for everybody by actually reading the terms and conditions of this OpenAI health service.
Exactly. I love it.
What did you find?
Well, I'm glad you asked, because there's several things. And again, I'm not a lawyer. This is not legal advice. This is just me going through the terms and conditions, saying if anything doesn't pass the sniff test. And as it turns out, there's plenty of us for us to have. For example, number one, the most obvious one, like you said, health data is still collected and stored. So if this is stored somewhere, that means someone can get access to it, right?
Correct.
Second one, this is not regulated like medical providers. Also, like you said, doctors have to go through a lot of red tape regulations, and there's a reason for that, which is ensuring we're not shooting our arms with, bleach, for example, right? So OpenAI has none of that. So obviously they let you know, these rules do not apply. Now, in many situations, they can also disclose this very safe, very private data, such as law enforcement, for security reasons, to prevent fraud.
The law, they're obliged to by the law.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Still, they're being misleading then, at best. They make a promise to limited training use, but that means someone's going to have internal access. And refer to point number one, if someone has access, it can leak. And this is happening with many other tools, right? You're going to have these third-party integrations, more possibility for leaks. Health data, the definition is actually very broad of what constitutes health data. So could it be? Could it not be? Is mental health data? Who knows? It's up to a lawyer to make the argument. And the last one, which is what OpenAI loves to say, which is just trust us, bro.
Yeah.
Okay. So I don't know how I feel about this.
I don't feel great about it. I also as you said, the thing about bleach, I just actually got a chill, because if you remember, we were just talking about this earlier in the episode, these things are trained on the entirety of the internet, including whole bunches of, new age health stuff, right? People treating cancer with crystals and all sorts of fringe movements that the AI does not know how to weight those things against the recommendation by WebMD. It doesn't read those two things as having different weight in the world. It just reads them as two different sources of information. And so it makes me very concerned. If it tells you to put glue on pizza, it might tell you to do something else, like drinking tea to cure your cancer. And that's not going to work.
Yeah, it's definitely very concerning. Again, doesn't necessarily say, hey, I mean, OpenAI is evil or not. They saw a gap in the market. They're going with it. But obviously, it's up to our politicians to listen to people and regulate. Like, what would you do? I want to get in your shoes for a minute. How would you use this tool in a mindful way? Would you use it at all?
A lot of people have talked about how they have put in like their test results that they get back from doctors in order to understand them. And like, I'm rethinking that right now. Like maybe if you do it in an incognito window, or if you do it in like a safer iteration where the data that you put in is like held back behind a data wall, right? A data gate, and so it can't leak back out. I know a lot of people do that because you don't understand the results that come back. Like it has like these dots and like bar charts and percentages and all these things that you like absolutely can't understand. So scrape your name off of it if you're going to do that. Okay.
I believe there's a tool, an AI tool, but DuckDuckGo that might allow you to anonymize. Also, ChatGPT allows you to use it without logging in, right?
It does. Yes. Then you just be like somebody on the internet. So maybe just use caution, but you know, it is good for that.
Anonymize also, right? Like because if
you could use the incognito
without logging in, but then I upload my PDF with my name and all my sensitive information.
Right.
You're toast. Now, okay, we're saying, we should use it mindfully, assume these tools are not private, or they're not private. Don't assume it. They're not private by default. They need your data. Being intentional about what you share and why. And if you do, always remember, this could be a friend, not a friend. Don't even think of it as a friend. This is basically a parrot repeating things that sound plausible, but you don't know if they're sourcing from Reddit, from a YouTube conspiracy video, from WebMD. We don't know. So if ghost authority is everywhere, right? We cover search, prices, health, how it could affect content. What are we really supposed to do about it?
You know what's interesting is like, as you were talking, I was thinking about this irony. And the irony is that these tools were built to like help us work through confusing situations, help us do things faster and more efficiently. And then at the end of the day, it's like those are the things that we have to pay attention to when we're dealing with this idea of a ghost authority, right? Like having clarity when you're getting information back to understand, okay, do I believe this or do I not? It's almost going back to like basic media literacy, right? This is important, so I should double check it. And then this whole speed thing, like if it helps you do things more faster, more efficiently, but like when you are moving too fast, you're not getting fair pricing, right? Or you're not thinking about omitting your personally identifying data from that medical report that you're uploading into ChatGPT. So it's almost like we have to, in order to take advantage of the like amazing benefits of this technology, we also have to grow the own awareness around the ways that they're mitigating on those same areas. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. I keep hearing, it's sort of like a common thread in all our episodes, which is education. Educating yourself, educating others is the best you can do to protect yourself, because most folks don't have the education or don't have the, have not been made aware that this is what could happen when they upload their data. Sure, terms and conditions, that's what every company and lawyer will say, but no one reads that and they know it. So again, the two most important takeaways I'm taking from what you say, and correct me if I'm wrong, is like speed is not your friend in this case, because speed makes you clumsy. It makes you make decisions that might not be the most convenient for you. And also being intentional, right? Understanding what you're sharing with each platform so you have a better grasp of how screwed you are.
And you know what else, though? Like, you were like, speed is not your friend, but you know who else is not your friend? AI. Like, I think we as human beings, we have this sort of built-in kind of way of anthropomorphizing everything around us, right? And, we feel a kinship towards these things because they speak to us in our language and often in a complimentary way. But I think it would serve us better to think about them as a stranger that you're meeting in the middle of Times Square. I'm here in New York this week. Would you tell that person about your endometriosis battle? Would you buy that thing that they're selling you in Times Square for exactly that price, or would you haggle, right? Would you trust them to tell you who the president of the United States was in 2029 or not, right?
I'm afraid of knowing the answer to that one. One analogy you brought in previous episodes was this bus stop analogy. I don't know if you remember. It's bus station analogy. So yeah, treat it like you're talking to a stranger at a bus station in New York. So be careful. All right.
Careful out there, folks.
Exactly. So learning how AI systems actually work, understanding what are the incentives of the platforms for you to provide this data, questioning what you get, and staying human are the takeaways. Now, when we talk about security, we got a really good episode that I want everybody to watch, and hopefully you too, which is our episode about security. All the possible things where AI has security gaps that can come back to bite you in the ass. So if you want to keep on watching, after you subscribe and give a like to this video and leave a comment, you can hit this video and watch it. And that's all for this episode, Kate. Anything else you want to add?
Have a great day in LA.
All right, I will watch this video. Thank you for watching another episode. Goodbye.